All glorious to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So what happens now? What?
I'll be back in a minute.
You'll be back in a minute. Oh, Gayatri, it's good to see you. Remember us? No.
In the meantime, I would like to offer flowers to all Prabhupada disciples.
Oh, great. Yes.
Sushi.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna. So, what happens now?
Maharaj, another class, but I just want to welcome.
Okay, welcome.
Okay, so, Hare Krishna, everyone. Oh, please, everyone, come forward. Please, everyone. Thank you.
This is a nice area for you. There's a park. I was at a park right before you in the class.
The park which is there.
Yeah, there's a beautiful park here. Right around the corner.
What is it called? Burnmill Park.
Burnmill Park.
Yeah, Maharaj, we were actually talking that we can have a Rath Yatra in the park.
Yeah, it's actually a great park.
So thank you everyone for coming. And so we have devotees from Charlotte who are here. We have devotees from Greensboro, High Point area. We have devotees from Winston-Salem. And then Prabhupada Village devotees are here. And then devotees from Cary, Raleigh, Morrisville. So devotees from everywhere here. So thank you everyone for joining us. And thank you to Sri Radhe Mataji, Ravi Prabhu and their family for organizing this Narsimha Yagya and inviting all of us so we all can be together to receive the blessings of Lord Narsimha Dev, Srila Prabhupada and His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami. So thank you everyone for joining. So we are very fortunate today. We have His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj who agreed to come down to enliven us with a class. So Maharaj is going to speak now. And we are very grateful. So let's warmly welcome His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj. We chant Hari Bol 3 times. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol!
So,
if you
can I lead a little kirtan first?
Yes, Maharaj, please.
Guitar and amplifier. Can everyone hear me?
Yes,
I think that's loud enough, right? Okay, so we're going to chant the prayers of the Lord, just sing it, and then we're going to have if you want to get up and dance during this whole thing, it's nice. It's nice to have some dancing. Maybe you should move the yagya company a little bit. Hey, I think that's loud enough. Okay, let me just make sure that line. Okay, there we go. Okay, everybody knows the prayers of the Lord Nrsimhadev? No? Yes?
You're welcome to stand up for the kirtan.
Yeah. We're going to chant Hare Krishna afterwards. Whoops. Uh-oh. Okay. No cartels, just drums. Namaste, Hare Singaya. Namaste, Hare Singaya. Da-da-da-da. Oyune. Da-da-da-da-oyune. Niranyakoti Purachaha. Suratam. Lord Let's go. Janana Jiva Sadi Gormata Vrinda Sri Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Vishnupada, Paramahansa Paravatakacharya, Olsatera Satashi Shimad. His Divine Grace, Abhaya Chanadana, Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada, ISKCON, Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda, Namacharya, Srila Haridas Thakur, and say, Oh, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Shri Vedanta, Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhakta Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopika Panath, Shyam Kun Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Kichai, Vrindavanam Kichai, Charanam Kichai, Vasami Kichai, Mamai Kichai, Shrimati Lasi Devi Kichai, Samaveda Bhakta Kichai, Gaur Premananda. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhule, Shriman Bhaktivedanta Swami, Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauramani Pacharani Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschacha, Deja Tarne. So offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, so kindly opened my eyes with the torch light of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So I guess I'm scheduled to give a half-hour class, so I think I'll go a little longer than that, but that's all right. So I understand you did a very wonderful sacrifice, Oma, for Lord Nrsingadev, so we'll speak about Lord Nrsingadev. And of course, Srila Prabhupada instructed us that we should daily worship Lord Nrsingadev for a variety of purposes. One purpose, of course, is to protect the Krishna conscious movement. The Krishna consciousness movement is Srila Prabhupada's society for creating a revolution of the misdirected lives of an impious civilization. So my whole life is dedicated to Srila Prabhupada's movement, ISKCON, and serving Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON. And we pray for the protection and the purity of Srila Prabhupada's society, and the leaders of our movement have that as their duty, to protect the purity. And the way we protect our purity is engaging in regular sadhana every day. You know, chanting the holy names with attention, avoiding offenses, rising early. That's how we maintain our purity, having kirtan. You cannot maintain your purity by some material means, just thinking, oh, I got this anartha, I got that anartha, let me get rid of it. The only way is Cheto Darpanam Arjanam Bhava Mahatvad Nirvapanam. Chanting the Lord's holy names with purity. And that's our movement, the Hare Krishna movement. So, that's the first purpose of worshiping Lord Nrsingadev. And another purpose, of course, is for the safety of the spiritual master and for your own safety, like that. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was given the Nrsinga mantra by his father, Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur. And the reason he gave him that mantra was because Lord Nrsingadev not only protects us externally in terms of, obvious things, but actually I tried chanting, this is a little funny thing, I tried chanting the prayers of Lord Nrsingadev when the police pulled me over the other day for speeding, and it didn't work. Yeah, I was going twice the speed limit, and I went, Nrsingadev, Nrsingadev, Nrsingadev. And the policeman said, here's a ticket. Is your name Lord Nrsingadev? I said, no. Here's my license. Anyway, so sometimes the Lord will chastise you and you're thinking He's not protecting you, but actually His chastisement is His protection. For those who I especially favor, I take everything away. So, but even more important, as far as our worship of Lord Nrsingadev is concerned, was the reason that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, His Divine Grace, Om Vishnu Pad, was given the Nrsinga mantra because Lord Nrsingadev destroys the demons in our heart. And what are those demons? The demons are Kama, Krodha, Mada, Matsarya, Bharya, Vaya. These things are called anarthas. Anartha means basically things you don't want. Yeah, what don't we want? We don't want lust, we don't want anger, we don't want greed. Although if you go on the internet, you find that people are trying to increase lust, increase anger, increase greed. It's quite interesting. Increase envy, increase fear. It's modern culture. But we want to get rid of these things. Why do we want to get rid of these things? First of all, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kam Sakalaya Shanta. You're not going to be happy or peaceful when you have these things. Anybody who's angry or lusty or greedy or envious of others, their mind is disturbed. Like the beginning of happiness means being peaceful, isn't it? So we have to get rid of these anarthas, lust, anger, greed, illusion. So by chanting the Lord Nrsimhadeva's prayers, we're praying to him to go within our heart, just like Tanubharingam, like he tore apart Hiranyakashipu like an insect is torn apart. We ask him to go into our hearts and actually tear apart the anarthas. However, it's understandable, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that we don't just sit back and wait for Lord Nrsimhadev to tear apart the anarthas. There are 5 factors in action, and we see this very clearly with the demons who are actually represent anarthas that Lord Balaram killed, that those demons require some special endeavor on our own part too. So we don't just sit back and say, Lord Nrsimhadev, get rid of my lust. Lord Nrsimhadev, get rid of my greed. Lord Nrsimhadev, no. We have to work on it. And we work on it, of course, in different ways. And I think the most important way is like serving Vaishnavas. Because when we serve Vaishnavas, like it says in the Adi Purana, Krishna says, one who says it is my devotee is not my devotee. The one who says he is his devotee is my devotee. Then we actually get Krishna's mercy by serving Vaishnavas, and specifically by serving His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And really what serves or pleases Prabhupada the most, apart from the foundational principles of chanting and everything like that, is actually carrying out the mission of Krishna consciousness. And of course Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentions that too. Tarikara Krishna Pradesh Marage Guru Hoi Tore Des. That actually giving others Krishna conscious. And so this is really what satisfies Krishna, what satisfies Krishna's devotees. And if we do this, especially Srila Prabhupada was asked one time, one devotee said, I want the dust of your lotus feet. And Prabhupada said, my feet are always moving. So, get out there. And that's what the Lord Chaitanya did. Wherever you go, wherever you meet, give them Krishna. So that's everybody's duty, to give people Krishna. And in this way we get Krishna's mercy, and we actually become real Vaishnavas. Vaishnava is something very special. Oftentimes we call ourselves devotees of Vaishnavas. One time a devotee wrote a letter to Prabhupada and called himself a devotee. And Prabhupada said, no, devotee doesn't think of himself as a devotee. Devotee thinks of himself as an aspiring devotee. But that we should aspire to be Vaishnavas. And in Lord Nrsimhadeva's pastimes, getting back to Lord Nrsimhadev, of course, we find the most inspirational person is Prahlad Maharaj, who is actually carrying out that mission of preaching Krishna consciousness and showing the utmost in compassion for others. And even before his father was killed by Lord Nrsimhadev, he was boldly preaching in a dangerous situation. Prabhupada actually commented on that when he was sending devotees to places like Pakistan or Russia, that when he sent devotees there, they get special mercy because you're going into the most dangerous situation to preach Krishna consciousness. So Prahlad Maharaj was preaching to his schoolmates in the Asura Kula, it was a Guru Kula, but the Asura Guru, Sandanamarka, who were the sons of Shukracharya, And he just waited until they stepped out of the classroom to preach, to get them to chant the holy names of the Lord. I mean, that's really bold, isn't it? You can imagine, of course, we have one devotee here who goes to the Gurukula. Imagine if, when the teacher stepped out of the classroom, if you got people started feeding them meat or something like that, the other students meat. That would be the same, contrary. To turn it upside down. If you would like teach them about, okay, my dear students, can you imagine doing that? My dear students, you should eat meat, take intoxication, have illicit sex, and the teacher walks in. So that's the opposite of what Prahlad Maharaj was doing. He was saying, my dear sons of the demons, you should chant the holy names. And of course the teacher walks in and gets upset. So really he's showing us the example of what it means to be a Vaishnava. Because he's also following the footsteps of his spiritual master, Narada Muni, who he had association with when he was in the womb of his mother, Kayadu. So basically, boldness, Abhaya Shatva Sham Shuddhi Jnana Yoga Vavastitihi. Many of us are not bold because we don't have that faith in Krishna. Faith is actually the first important quality to becoming Krishna conscious. Ado Shraddha. And also the Bhagavad Gita says what? Shraddha Nau Purusha Dharma Shasha Kamantapao. Uprapyaman Nivartante Mitu Samsara Vartmani. So he had that firm faith. One who has firm faith, then that person, was it Yasha Devi Parabhaktir Yata Devi Dida Guru Dashai Ekatata Yartaka Prasante Mahatmala, then everything is revealed. The person gets Krishna consciousness immediately. That firm faith in the words of the spiritual master, firm faith in the Vedic literatures. So he had that firm faith. And similarly, let's compare that to Srila Prabhupada, who had that firm faith in the words of his spiritual master. Oftentimes we ask people, like, how do you prove that Prabhupada was the topmost devotee? And actually the objective proof is that Prabhupada had that firm faith. Faith is actually the measure of one's advancement in devotional service. Not that one sees the gopis dancing or something like that, it's a question of the firm faith. So Prabhupada's firm faith was demonstrated by taking the words of his spiritual master as his very life and soul. The same words same instructions that were given to many of his godbrothers too. Prabhupada took that more seriously than any one of his godbrothers did. And that proves Prabhupada's exalted position. Because there's many other proofs, like Prabhupada going to the West. Prabhupada was predicted by Bhakti Vinod Thakur, predicted by Lord Nityananda. But still, objectively we can see that devotee who has the most faith in Guru, then that devotee is considered most exalted. Another example, once Prabhupada's disciples, my godbrother Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, who had so much faith in Srila Prabhupada in preaching Krishna consciousness that he was able to go to the previous Iron Curtain countries. That means where you had this KGB, Secret Service. If they found you, they would lock you up and torture you and everything like that. And so he went there to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books in the libraries. And he's basically jumping in the middle of the night from one train to another, jumping on the train tracks just to escape from the KGB. And when Prabhupada heard this, and Prabhupada, saw him, Prabhupada embraced him, very, very tightly, and very, very pleased. So this is really important, this firm faith. So Prahlad Maharaj, who is practically a great inspiration for all of us, and actually, I'd like to think about him even more than Lord Nrsimhadev, because he's Lord Nrsimhadev's dear devotee. He just had that complete faith. And so much faith he had in Lord Nrsimhadev, so much faith in the Lord, and so much purity that when he was offered everything by the Supreme Personality of Godhead after the Lord killed his father, he only asked for the purity to save the conditioned souls. Specifically his father, but for all conditioned souls. He said, I'm overcome with mercy, with compassion for the conditioned souls. So, here are exemplars. Here is Here are personalities: Prabhupada, Prahlad Maharaj, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, all these great devotees that are Kripa Sindhu, oceans of compassion. And also Lord Kapila describes similar when he's talking about Vaishnava. He says, Tatikshila Kurunika Surada Sarvadehinam Ajata Sattva Shanta Sadhava Sadhabhushana. He says the qualities of a Vaishnava are that he's tolerant, Kurunika, compassionate, a friend to all living entities, Surada Sarvadehinam. Ajat doesn't have any enemies. His enemy is never born. Ajata Sattva Shanta. Sadhava Sadhabhushana. These are his ornaments. So remembering Lord Nrsingadev's pastimes and remembering Lord Nrsingadev's devotees and the purpose of the worship of Lord Nrsingadev and how important Lord Nrsingadev is to our Krishna consciousness movement and how important it is to carry out Srila Prabhupada's mission. And all of you are meant to become soldiers, empowered, deputized. I remember many years ago, before I joined the Krishna consciousness movement, we would watch these cowboy and Indian movies, not Indian from India, but Indians from America. And when there was some problem in the Old West, that doesn't mean China or anything. That means, anyway, America. They would always deputize someone. Even though he had no training, they would deputize. They'd put a little badge on someone, say, oh, you're a deputy sheriff. Go out and save everybody or protect everybody. So in the same way, Srila Prabhupada did this, and Prabhupada continues to do this. Prabhupada did this. He took devotees who were just green. Green means fresh, new. And he sent them to London. And they started the movement in London. And they sent these devotees to India. And then these dancing white elephants, which Srila Prabhupada, it's Prabhupada's nomenclature, helped Prabhupada start the movement in India. Just like completely fresh, new people who just joined the movement 2 years before. 2 years before. And most of you, I think, have joined the movement at least 5 or 10 years before. Some of us 50 years. Oh my God. 50 years. It's a long time, isn't it? More than 50 years. So, so you see, like, Prabhupada was able to take people just like new people and deputize them. So we should be ready. The message I'm giving everyone is we should be ready to be deputized by Srila Prabhupada in whatever way, according to our capacity, whether that means distributing Srila Prabhupada's books or preaching, talking, sharing Krishna consciousness. Like the verse I just quoted, Yari Degatari Gai Krishna Upadesh, Amare Gai Guru Hoy Tore Desh, which Lord Chaitanya said, you should instruct everybody, whoever you meet, whoever you come across, give them Krishna consciousness. I remember one of my godbrothers, Vaisheshekha Prabhu, when I've been with him, everybody he sees, he approaches, and he gives them a book. And he's an amazing devotee. And just he's an inspiration as far as what I'm describing. Actually, also there's another devotee in the UK, one of my disciples, who distributes books, but mainly she gets people to say Gauranga. She goes up to everybody, even the bobbies, that means the police, and she just stops them in the middle of the street, say Gauranga. And I'm shocked whenever I see her doing that. But that's boldness. That's Abhaya Sattva Shomashuddhi Jnana Yoga Vasati. So all of us are meant to come to that platform and learn to sing, and is there protecting us. We don't have anything to worry about. What do we have to lose? Our false ego. It's pretty good to lose the false ego. There's nothing to lose when we approach people. If people say no, that's okay. We get purified. If people yell at us, we get purified. And we remain compassionate. Haridas Thakur, being whipped in 22 marketplaces. He simply wanted to give his mercy to the people who were whipping him. I mean, that was his concern. Haridas Thakur being approached by what? The prostitute. He wanted to give his mercy to the prostitute. The prostitute had ill intentions in the beginning. So in the same way, we tolerate Tikshiva Kurunika. And this will please Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nishingadev. So we should always remember that Lord Nishingadev, Bahir Nishingo, Hridaya Nishingo. He's outside, he's everywhere. And he's also in the heart, Hridaya Nishingo. Nishingam Madim Sharanam Drapadeya. I surrender to you, Lord Nishingadev, because you're inside, you're outside. And Lord Nishingadev is Krishna. As we hear in the Dasha Avatar Shlokas, Keshuvadrita, Narahavi Rupa, Jai Jagadisha Hari. So we're always protected. We got nothing to worry about. Of course, wear a seatbelt. Wear a mask. Don't be foolish. Don't be foolish. Don't say, well, Lord Nishingadev is protecting me. Okay, no mask, no seatbelt, no COVID, no vaccination. No. Because who do you think gave you the vaccination? Lord Nishingadev. Krishna says, I'm the ability in man, the intelligence of the intelligent, the strength of the strong. So it's all came from Krishna. Anything that's good in this world is meant to be used in Krishna's service, like we're using technology in Krishna's service. Anyway, so that's my message for today. In light of Lord Nishingadev and worshiping Lord Nishingadev, we should remember he's protecting us. Be bold, like Prahlad Maharaj, like Srila Prabhupada, like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is called Nishinga Guru. That's really the message Lord Nishingadev is giving us. You have nothing to worry about. As long as you're situated, chanting in Krishna consciousness, you have nothing to worry about except Maya. That's the only thing you worry about. Prabhupada said, that's the only thing you worry about. Prabhupada said, the young Western boys and girls, they're not afraid of anything except for Maya. I mean, they should be afraid of Maya. They're not afraid of Maya. We should be afraid of Maya. Okay, any questions or comments? Yes?
So, one reason that this Narasimha Yogi has performed,
Yeah.
Shushain is actually next weekend.
He's going to school.
Yeah, and he's going to be in the university.
By himself. What? Alapa. Well, I was just reading about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Kazi this morning in class. We were hearing about that. So, just read that chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That's the 17th chapter of the Adi Leela about Lord Chaitanya interacting with the Kazi. So if your roommate wakes up one morning with tear marks on his chest, you can explain it to him. No, I mean, actually, I've had many discussions with Muslims, and there's no problem. There's no problem, because if you can sit down one-to-one with people, it's usually pretty easy. It's only when you get into the mob psychology like they have on the internet that people go crazy. But when you can actually sit down with an individual and talk to them, explain your beliefs, like in Fiji, where I'd like to go to, but it's closed down right now because of COVID, we've established this interreligious dialogue forum. And we have Muslims, we have Mormons, we have Baptists, we have Methodists, and we sit down, we take prasadam. We actually served prasadam. We had regular meetings before COVID, and we just share different beliefs. And it's not a problem. It's not a problem. I mean, actually, if he's a strict Muslim, that means they're not going to be smoking or drinking. That's pretty good to have a roommate like that. Most of the roommates at the university, I don't know if any of you have gone to university, I think Gayatri's gone to university, I prefer a Muslim, because most of the roommates at the university, they're not only drinking, they're smoking. I remember when I would distribute books in the university, I would go into people's rooms, and just by breathing the air, I'd get intoxicated. Isn't it, Shari? It was just full, not of cigarette smoke, marijuana smoke. So, and then I remember, oh my God, I remember when I was traveling to the universities and preaching, distributing books, we'd sometimes use the bathrooms in the university. You know, I'd be shaving by the mirror, and then the girls would walk into the same bathrooms. So, you're lucky. You're lucky. I mean, he's going to follow just about all the, you know, of course, the meat thing is another thing. But at least he won't eat pigs. You know the story why the Muslims never attacked Tirumala? Does anyone know the story? It's an interesting story. Tirumala is the richest temple in India. Tirupati is actually the town below Tirumala. So Balaji, you know, very rich. So the Muslims were surrounding Tirumala, getting ready to go up the hill to steal all the gold and everything. So the Hindus actually had a very good idea. They said, do you know, they're worshiping a pig up there. And the Muslims never went. It's an interesting story. So, on the other hand, I don't think it's a problem. And you should preach Christian consciousness. And I will try to visit there sometime and maybe do some programs. Mainly, we're concentrating in North Carolina State right now. But also you got Gayatri on the other side, right? You know, all the way in the other direction. So I'm going to try to visit these devotees. I mean, Krishna has blessed me this year with a nice car, so I can drive everywhere very, very easily. I just go to sleep, the car takes me to court. No?
Don't sleep, I was.
I don't sleep. No, I don't sleep, but it's stress-free. Krishna's blessed me. One of my disciples, it's their car and they let me use it whenever I want, so it's just like stress-free for me to go anywhere at any time right now. You know, I went to Florida last week for the 50th anniversary of Prabhupada's coming to Gainesville, Florida, and we drove down there. It was very easy. So, you know, I'll visit, Krishna willing, I'll visit you all, and you just remain faithful. And I think this year a lot of the classes are going to be on the internet anyway, because you got this nice Delta variant coming out. So we just take advantage. Actually, when Krishna sends some difficulty, a devotee understands how to take advantage of that difficulty. I've experienced this year that I've had more interactions and more preaching than I've ever had any other time in my life in Krishna consciousness, and that's due to the internet. So, as they say, when life gives you a lemon, you make lemonade, right? So we have to make, like Prabhupada talked about how there was a man walking around, and he saw a stick and a string and a gourd. And you think just some useless things, a gourd, an old pumpkin, dried pumpkin. And he put them together and he made a musical instrument. So you're in a very nice situation. You can bring people to Krishna consciousness. You can have them come up to online classes and different things like that. And it's amazing what can be done. And Krishna will protect you. Yeah, so that's why we're having the Nrsimha to protect him. I think the main protection is from one's mind. That's the danger. Where does the lust reside according to Krishna and the Gita? Senses, the mind, and intelligence. So that's really where it is. It doesn't reside out there. Just like sometimes we look at the external things. Like I remember the early days of the movement, the brahmacharis would look at a woman and consider them to be Maya. But the Maya is them. You're attracted to something. Don't blame the object. It's just like, I have a computer, if I'm attracted to my computer, it's just, computer is Maya? No, I'm Maya. So the point is, yes, the real Maya is the enjoying spirit that we have, not the external thing that's going on. So if you remain focused on your studies and focused on your devotion, you're chanting every day and have good sadhana, wake up early. I mean, I very much admire the Muslims. They're very strict in offering their, obeisances, 5 times a day. I find them stricter than devotees in their sadhana, isn't it? No matter if they're on an airplane, if they're in an airport, because I know I travel a lot, I see that. They're very strict. The women are very chaste. They wear burqas. All you ladies, you get burqas? No? I remember I was in an airplane once and the lady was wearing a burqa. And I thought, is that a man underneath with a machine gun? I was worried. But anyway, so, yeah, so I mean, you got a good roommate. Just think of what you could have had. You could have had a dope smoking, woman hunting, hamburger eating, whatever person. That's a very good religious person you got next to you. We appreciate all religions. Prabhupada was not sectarian like that, but Prabhupada would just insist that people follow the rules of their religion. Practically in every dialogue that Prabhupada had with a Christian minister or a Christian, he would always say, thou shalt not kill. Why are you killing? So, I mean, of course, you can't be as direct as Prabhupada, because Prabhupada was older. You could say different things to different people that you can't say, but we appreciate different religions. We're not sectarian. Someone's a good Christian is fantastic. I mean, if they're doing kirtan in their own religion, glory, Allah, Allah, Allah Akbar, or chanting to Jesus Christ. It's very nice. So, any other questions or comments? Yes?
Maharaj, you mentioned about faith is the most important factor.
Yes.
For examples of Allah, Maharaj, and Prabhupada, and Bhakti. For common men like us, how do we develop that faith?
That's a good question.
What are some of the things that we can do?
Okay, so one of the ways is described in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Prataksha Bhagavandaram Shushukam Kartamavyam. You follow Krishna consciousness and you experience different things. And I'm not talking about to see lights or whatever, but you experience the Vairagya Vidya. You experience Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayati Asu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayada Haitakam. That you gradually get detached from this world and you experience happiness and you get knowledge. I mean, so it's your personal experience that increases your faith. Another way that our faith is increased is by seeing great personalities. Like when I met Prabhupada 50 years ago, that, immediately my faith, because I could actually perceive Prabhupada's transcendental presence, or hearing about Prabhupada, or reading Srimad Bhagavatam, because then there's a direct experience or a realization of vijnana that occurs. So there's various means, because in the beginning, Ado Shraddha, this initial faith, which is basically interest and a little bit of trust, but then the trust grows by following the process of Krishna. It's not something artificial, but the process of Krishna consciousness, associating with devotees, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, a lot of things can help develop your faith. I mean, even for me, when I study, one of my main subject matters that I like to study, apart from Krishna consciousness and sense gratification, is science. As everybody knows that I'm quite expert in microbiology. The reason I'm doing that is, to understand and to try to explain how life comes from life, which is what Prabhupada wanted. So whenever I study science, and Prabhupada actually mentioned it, I was listening to Prabhupada mention this today, he said if you're a real scientist, then you actually believe in God when you see the workings of the material nature. When you see how complex the material nature is, and it's a machine, yantra rudani maya, but you see how complex this machine is, more complex than any machine ever invented or dreamed of by any human being, then your faith in God really just increases dramatically. I mean, you read all these far-out stories in the Srimad Bhagavatam, for example, and you think, how can that happen? But then you actually look inside a cell, and you see things that are even further out inside of cell. I always like to talk about this one little creature inside every cell in your body. It's called a kinesin. It's my favorite. character inside the cell. It's actually a walking entity who transports cellular garbage and, other things inside the cell. Well, actually, he walks and he runs in, he walks along a tightrope. And he runs into some obstacle and he just, walks around him like that. And then, he's been seeing, I don't know if it's a she or he. I haven't checked, I don't know if they have little Canadian children. But that it, or he, or she, has been seen, in electron scanning microscopes. And that's just one of hundreds or thousands or millions of little entities inside the cell. And scientists haven't even understood all the entities inside the cell, how the cell works. I mean, it's just an amazing thing. Just like when you get your DNA and then of course, everyone knows about messenger RNA now. But when you get this messenger RNA that carries the message from the DNA, which is in the nucleus, and then the nucleus, little opens up so it can go out. How does it know that? And so then it makes a copy, messenger RNA makes a copy. Anyway, I'm not going to get into the whole microbiology right now, but it's so cool, so amazing that you're convinced that there's God. It must have been designed. I mean, you look at anything like this house. There must have been an architect, right? No one threw up the wood and it just became a house one day. There was an architect, there was a builder, there was an electrician, there was all these things. So I think even looking at nature convinces you. At least it gives me faith. Everything I look at gives me faith in Krishna. Isn't it? Yasmin vigate sarvameva vigatam bhavati. One who knows Krishna knows everything. Anyway, so just keep your eyes open and faith will come. And of course, do your sadhana and have a good desire. Because if you don't have a good desire, Krishna says, Matak smritir jnanamaponam cha, then Krishna will give you the wrong intelligence. Faith comes from Krishna in the heart. Krishna even says if you desire to devote yourself to a particular demigod, Krishna will make your faith strong in that demigod. I mean, look at how many people have faith in Donald Trump. Is he a demigod? I don't think so. Anyway, I mean, it's just like they go to these rallies and it's just like, wow, I wish the devotees were so enthusiastic to spread Krishna consciousness. I'm envious. So, isn't it? I mean, that's also there because Krishna's in the heart. If you desire to devote yourself to some particular cause or entity, Krishna makes your faith strong. So, there's the reciprocation. Yaya tamam prapajate tam sataiva bhajamayaham. So that's another important point. You should really want to be Krishna. If you want to forget Krishna, then Krishna's the greatest cheater. Krishna will actually say, "Oh, you want to forget me? Here's all the goods, everything you need to forget me." Nice philosophy. Just like today, I was advising one university student who was studying religion in the university, and she was studying some of the works of Sigmund Freud. I don't know if any of you heard of Sigmund Freud on religion. He was a complete atheist and he had real strong faith that there was no God. And the reason he had faith there's no God is really interesting. Is because he had problems with his own father. And because he had problems with his own father, therefore he generalized all father images, God the Father, in the same way. And I mean, it involved something really perverted. He was really perverted. He talked about Oedipus complex, which I'm not going to get into right now because it's a polite company. But so he was really strong faith of atheism. And he's one of the founders of modern psychology. Of course, modern psychology has actually moved away from him nowadays. I mean, that's a completely different thing, but it's still influenced to a certain extent. So it's interesting, you go to the university, and I think that's more dangerous than your roommate. The philosophies that you're going to be exposed to, especially if you take a course in religion. Like Prabhupada said, it's like trying to taste a bottle of honey by looking on the outside of the bottle. So the way they study religion in the university is called methodological atheism. Does anyone understand what that means? That means they study it from the outside of the bottle with the idea that there's no God. There's an assumption. Before you study religion in the university, you have to make the assumption that it's all just psychological and sociological. It's a pre-assumption you make before the study. You can't go into the university religion department and say, I actually believe there's God. You'll fail. You have to study it from the outside. So that's actually much more dangerous. The atheistic theories are, Darwin, Mr. Darwin's theory of evolution, which is completely nonsense. But it's really hard to convince university students that it's wrong. To them it's like the Bible to them. Darwin, we evolved. Of course, Darwin didn't say we evolved from apes. He says we have a common ancestor with the apes. I mean, you really got to present Darwin properly. But it's important that you study these things so later on you can defeat, or you can present them to Krishna, to people. Like I study all these things, and I could talk about all these subject matters and talk to a university professor and not be bewildered. But because you're going to the university, there's the danger you could be bewildered by hearing all these philosophies and seeing all this so-called evidence that we evolved. And of course ISKCON has published these books like The Hidden History of the Human Race that shows how that there's anomalous evidence that goes against what Darwin talked about. So you have to really be expert in dealing with these atheistic philosophies. Like, it wasn't Bhaktivinoda Thakur who said, education makes one as foolish as an ass. So you have to be, it's true. I mean, if you take it the wrong way, of course Bhaktivinoda Thakur was highly educated. But if you really get influenced by the atheistic education, you'll become as foolish as an ass. And that's more dangerous than your roommate, more dangerous than marijuana, more dangerous than all the pretty girls or whatever. More dangerous than anything in the university is the atheistic, methodological atheism. So I think that's what I would worry about. God? That's just there to keep people civilized. It's the opiate of the people. That's what Karl Marx said. It's the opiate of the people. It just keeps people civilized. It's like a social contract. Otherwise, we'd all, like Freud said, we'd all be, I hope I'm not boring everybody, but we would all be struggling with our ids. Does everybody know what an id is? Freud, I'll just give you, oh my God. This turned into a college course. Freud talking about the id, ego, and the superego. This is basic background. Id is our basic, the impulses, the raw impulses. Ego is the sense of self. Superego is like your conscience. So society is just meant to keep, and religion is just meant to keep us from expressing our ids and just being like Tarzan, me Tarzan, you Jane. Like that. So anyway, so that's the sort of philosophy you're going to run into. Pure atheism. And really sophisticated atheism. It's not just like, I don't believe in God. It's just like, wow. And, the scientists and the, what did they talk about, the black holes in space and everything like that. So you have to be ready to, and you can consult me, because I'm pretty expert in those things. But that's the danger. That's the danger in the university. It makes someone as foolish as an ass, according to Bhakti Thakur. So any other questions? Yes.
I have a question on the topic of faith.
Yeah.
Is I just want to extend it a little bit. So I understand that when you go into something, you come with certain assumptions, like having the assumption of God.
Yeah.
But my question is, there's so many different faiths that are out there, and why is it that this faith in particular is, worthy of that type of entrance? And could we apply the same thing to other religions or other faiths?
Yes. I'm not against other religions or other faiths unless as long as they present. I'm going to plug this computer in. Could someone put that plug in the wall there for me? And there. This thing's running out. And I have to make sure the battery doesn't run out. There we go. So, God is multifaceted. In other words, he has different aspects of his personality. And so, this is the best. I say people their own philosophy should study the world different objective. I mean, just like if you know philosophy, for example, we have a more sophisticated, what's called epistemology. Do you know what epistemology is? Epistemology is the science of knowledge. How do you know what you know? Like if you read Bir Goswami's Tattva Sandarbha, in which he deals with, why do we believe in what we believe in? So you don't find that sort of sophistication, elaboration, and scientific description in any other religious organization or any other religious tradition. I mean, it's just amazing. It's just amazing, the description of why we believe in what we believe in. Like most people, if you go to them and say, why do you believe what you believe in? They say, well, that's just what I was taught by my minister, by the Brahmin. Hinduism, it's not that. I'm not talking about Hinduism, I'm talking about Christians. That if you go into some Hindu temple, why do you worship this deity or that deity? People deal with philosophical explanation. It's called epistemology, of course. And then, because to me, I come from a very educated background. I need something that's very, very concise and is there. And for someone who's not trained in science or someone who needs something of elaborate descriptions of the Supreme Personality Godhead, I mean, that's as long as they have a belief. Yuga Dharma, but as far as from a protective viewpoint, if you study the type of philosophy, the big word, ontology, nature, truth, and elaborately. I mean, I've been studying Krishna consciousness for over 50 years. I've learned new things. It's more sophisticated, and I'm impressed every day. I did study, before I came to Krishna consciousness, I did study Christian religion, Islamic tradition, and Jewish religion. I didn't study Zoroastrianism. or any other religion, but at least those basic religions I studied, and I needed something far more scientific and far more definitive, and something that philosophically made sense. Because I do have training in philosophy also, so Krishna consciousness was the only thing that fit there for me. But it's not. I don't mean that as a criticism of anything else that anyone else is doing. But for me, this is my path. And even in Krishna consciousness, someone may be attracted more to Lord Brahma. And that's fine for them. Someone may be to worship the Lord Nrsimhadev more than Krishna. For them, that's the best. Someone may be attracted to worship any one of the number of incarnations of the Lord. Prabhupada said that Krishna has incarnations in every species of life. So every species, and some species that aren't species, like Lord Nrsimhadev is not a species. He's a mixture, amalgamation, right? Half man, half lion. And Hayagriva is also mixture, half horse, half man. So, whatever. We got something for everyone, and Prabhupada visited Christian monks sometimes, and he was very appreciative. He wrote in the guest book after he visited a monastery, he said, very spiritual. So Prabhupada was very appreciative. People actually follow their own rules and regulations. But for me, this is best because of the postgraduate study of God and the complete understanding philosophically. I just couldn't accept anything else. Everything else for me was very sentimental. That was in my path. I just couldn't do it. Yeah.
So I have two more questions based on what you just said.
Yeah.
So why does one have to approach it with the assumption that God exists?
Okay.
And my second question is, you kept referring to science of God, and I just wanted to understand
what science means in that respect. Yeah. Yeah. So. Yeah. Why do you have to about this? Well, again, I'll go back to my own background. That I didn't approach things like God exists. I came to that conclusion by seeing it. When you see something designed, there's a designer. So I was actually very disappointed with the religion that I was brought up in, sort of ritualistic shamanism. And even in the religious school I went to, I was told by one teacher, it was a religious school, the teacher said, there's no God, you're dead, you're dead. Okay. Sounds good to me. Each could be married, for tomorrow you may die. So the point is that the more I study science, okay, look, I major. The more science, the more there's someone to design it. Not necessarily God, maybe architect or someone at MIT who designed everything. And the more, then somehow or other, I developed faith in God because of that. I did not approach it as something that there was God. I approached it from because the science background is science means you're open. Real science means you're open to any particular alternative. Modern science means you automatically shut out the alternative. Right? That's what I mean methodological atheism. But real science is when he does pure science, because that's mathematics. Mathematics is the purest science there is. More than even applied science. He was a genius in mathematics. And so he really believes in God. He had real firm faith in God because of what he perceived. Even though he saw so many inequalities in the world, because he came from Germany right before World War II, the Nazis and everything like that, he escaped from Germany. Even though he saw all the cruelty, he still had faith in God because he saw the complexity of matter. So to me, that's very convincing. But the scientists, it's interesting. Like Dawkins, for example, he talked about DNA, and he said it has all the markings of a computer program. It looks like it has all the markings of design, Dawkins said. And he said, so one has to keep reminding oneself that it wasn't designed. In other words, is that science? If you keep reminding yourself that it wasn't designed, even though it looks like designed, but you keep reminding yourself, no, it's not designed. It's not designed, even though it has all the hallmarks, like the DNA, for example. It has coded information, nested information. Some of you are computer programmers here, you know what I'm talking about. Nested information. And it has all the hallmarks of design, and then you just have to keep reminding, that's not science. So then okay, you may question, now what is science? Okay, that was your second question. There's two definitions of science, of what science is, and both of them I accept. One is you do the experiment, controlled experiment. That's one way that scientists comes up with their conclusions. Another way is when you can't control things, there's observation, and you sort of induce, and I'm using that word directly, induction. You come to a general conclusion when you observe certain phenomena. So scientific method isn't only when you have controlled experiments. Scientific method is also when you can't control something, like you're observing what's happening in outer space through your telescopes and through other means, radio telescopes. And then you come to general conclusions, like you do a spectrographic analysis of some light that's coming, and you come to a conclusion. Therefore, because it generally indicates that certain elements are present when you get certain colors on the spectrograph, therefore there must be certain elements present in this star out there, or the star is receding, or it's coming toward us at a certain frequency. So that's another method of scientific observation. Not only the scientific method, not only the controlled experiment type of. So unfortunately, say that it couldn't be God. Yeah, that's not scientific. To me, that's not scientific. To come to the conclusion that even though something appears to be designed, it's not designed. You have to be open to all alternatives. A real scientist would be open to all alternatives. Maybe it's by chance, and maybe it's designed. You have to be open to both. Otherwise, you're not a real scientist. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry I'm asking some questions.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to answer the questions.
So, we agree that humans or anything that's existing is designed.
Yeah.
And we also agree that whatever's being designed is not perfect, right? Because
Well,
beings aren't.
it depends on what you mean by perfect. Like when you design, they design things in the factory, they design it with planned obsolescence. The perfect, then you come into another field of philosophy called teleology, which means you've got to know the purpose of it to see if it's perfect. Like for example, your car is designed to break down after a few number of years. Actually, they do that. They design things, your computer, for example. And sometimes they design it to break down, and sometimes it becomes obsolete because they have newer technology, just like your iPhones, which I hate. I will never buy an Apple product. Just like your Apple products, they come up with the latest iPhone, and later on they don't support the older iPhones. And so that's like planned obsolescence, but not really that the phone breaks down, but that keep up with the latest technology. So is that a fault? From one perspective, yes, it's imperfect. From another perspective, it's in accordance with the designer. So if you understand the purpose of everything, which is in philosophy called teleology, then you understand why there's imperfections. Imperfections like disease. That's an imperfection. Why do we have this imperfection? Why is this nice COVID going around right now? Well, that's another story, but from China, or wherever it's from now, the Delta variant. They call it the Indian variant. Anyway. So then you see there's a purpose to this world. Just like in the prison house. Let's say you go in a prison house. Things are not so perfect. They put you in a cell. You can only take a shower once a week. And I don't know. I never lived in prison, but I'm just surmising. And they make you work hard. It's a pretty nasty place, but it has a purpose. If you look at it from an overall perspective, it has a purpose. So really you have to see purposes before you can determine whether something is not functioning properly or not designed properly. Is that?
But God is perfect, right? So
God is perfect, yes.
So why isn't His creation perfect, or why are we created then? If He's perfect, why would we create something that's imperfect?
Okay, because why does the government, let's say if we had a perfect government, which is completely wrong, why would the government have a president if it was a good government? Because the people have some independence and they can decide to be criminals. So there's a perfect world, which is called the spiritual world, at least according to Vedic literature, it's not from my imagination. And so we decided to rebel. So we're put in a place to reform us. And this is arranged perfectly to reform us. To teach us, it's a world, it's temporary, it's miserable. I mean, it's obviously, there's a lot of things I don't like about this world, such as old age. I joined the movement, when I was 20 years old, and I look at myself in the mirror and say, God, why did you do this to me? I've been serving you all these years, and look what you gave me as a present. Some old So, I'm not saying I like all these arrangements. It's dishonest, but I can understand the problem. Because it's teaching me this is not my place. That I have a place somewhere else. So, after many, many births, Bohanam Janmana Ante, I come to realize that, hey, I'd be better off some other place. And that other place is with Krishna. So, if you understand the purpose, then the imperfections are part of, they're designed imperfections. I'm not disagreeing with you. There are imperfections, but they're designed like the designed obsolescence in a car or in a washing machine or in the iPhone or anything like that. Yeah, it's designed to be about that. I'm designed to not need. The body's designed to die. It's a pretty bad place. Therefore, Krishna says in Gita Tukali and Shashvatam. It's a good question. I mean, actually, these are all good philosophical questions. I really appreciate questions. Let someone else answer a question now. Yeah.
Devotees are from all the way from.
All right. Everybody's have to eat. Oh, he's asking the most important question. So I think we have to end, right?
Just thinking about the devotees.
All right, and anybody who wants to correspond with me about any of these points, this is, like I said, this is my training, so I like questions like that. These are intelligent questions, and these are the questions you're going to have to answer at the university too. These are the same but actually 10 times more intense, because these are going to be PhDs asking you questions like that. And that's your training. All right, so thank you very much. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. and all this flows